question 6. Here we go. That was the one where you had a graph with a transfer of energy through that ecosystem, and I know that on your printouts they came very blurry, particularly on the big printout, which must have been an A4 print, and that then put into the photocopier again to print it onto A3. So I have decided for this one to give you an extra mark, because seriously, and I've had several of you ask me to just literally read those numbers out. That is not something that should be happening, and not something where I should then not compensate with an extra mark here as well. Right, so let's go through that nice and slowly. So you've got a graph with energy flow between the different parts of a food chain. So prime producer, the consumer, and the secondary consumer here. Your first question is just literally a definition question. State what is meant by the abbreviations GPP and NPP. I genuinely had not looked at that question before talking you through those when we actually kind of did a last second revision. Gross primary productivity and net primary productivity. That's as a first mark to literally just state the definition. So just definitions is 1 mark. Then explain the difference between them. So explain what gross and what net productivity means. So 1 mark for just naming gross and net productivity, primary productivity. And the second mark for gross primary productivity is actually where whatever you're making is what the end of photosynthesis is, where you actually have glucose or trioses or sugars being made. So literally the light energy converted into chemical energy. That's what gross productivity is. The net productivity is what is available for the next tier, for the next can be passed on to the consumers. So for the next trophic level, that's what I was looking for. Okay, so net is what actually is available when that grass is being eaten, or whatever it is that's in the that was a primary producer here. Second mark here, so second question, what term is used to describe the transfer of energy between consumers, not between producers, between consumers? It's then called secondary productivity. They are definition questions. There are little definition questions. That's really carefully, literally double checking maybe with the glossary of your textbook, just to make sure that we're not leaving any stones unturned here. The calculation. The calculation is, it's a percentage one, and so that is something that is one part. So look at percentage of energy lost through the respiration by primary consumers. Respiration by primary consumers. If you go and look at your graph, respiration for primary consumers here, that's this arrow that hasn't been calculated. But we don't only want the number. So if you look at the question again, we don't want to have only the energy lost. We want the percentage of energy lost. So step 1, you've got 1 arrow in, 3 arrows out. The 3 arrows out need to total up to making that one. Okay, so literally just to getting to the kilojoules number for respiration lost, it's your 3,300 number minus the 1,090 and minus the 383 here, which should get you to 1,890 at that point. Now we need to have that as, because the question says you need to do a percentage. Question says a percentage. So we need to see this number here as percentage of that. If you're just roughly glancing at your numbers, just to get an estimate, what should you get in the end? It's not quite a half, is it? It's well, it kind of looks almost like it's roughly a half, isn't it? If it was 3,000, then we would have 1,800, but we've got a touch more. So maybe that's not too far off. If your final answer for your percentage is roughly 50-ish%, you can't be far off. If you're calculating something as idiotic as 1.2%, then that is probably off. So just kind of look at your final number. If it doesn't look right, it probably isn't right, okay? So how do you do the percentage of those? It literally at that point, actually, where do I best do that? No, we'll do that here. So you've got the numbers next to the actual picture. At that point, you do your 1,890, divide that by your 3,368 times 100. That is basic percentage calculations. I know that I always need to write these, as silly as it is, percentage calculations, I always need to write down for myself in a slow motion way. So what I do for myself, I know that the 3368, that is my 100%. My 1890, that is my, I've got no clue how many percent, that is my X%. I have got no idea. But I know that the relationship between these two numbers has to be the same relationship here. Okay, so whatever I'm doing here, I have to do here. The same procedure that I have to do there is to do it to get from this to that number, which is why I'm literally, you're then getting, that's actually a fraction thing. So see that as a fraction as well, just with the percentage attached to it. For me, I have to write it down. If you are good at percentage calculations, literally just whack your numbers in. With percentage calculations, again, estimate first. If your number looks completely and utterly stupid, then it probably is. Okay. That question here, 3 ways that energy can be expelled from the system. So you've got a marshland. How can you lose energy, chemical energy at each trophic level? How can you actually lose the energy altogether? You've got option 1, you have got excretion and egestion. Most of you had this one. So you've got some version excretion or some sort of poo, basically. Okay, that's the first one. Death is the next one. If an organism dies, it's no longer, if it dies naturally, it's no longer available for feeding at the next level. Same with excretion and poo. It's no longer available for feeding at the follow-on level. That's the idea here. And the last point here, emigration. If you have something that decided to walk off and get out of the marshland area, fly away or run away, it's no longer available to be eaten. Or if human hunters kind of took it and cooked it as their own dinner, it's no longer available as food within that ecosystem. Another maths question here. This one is asking you, and you need the numbers from the other side of that paper here. This one is asking you the area of marshland. You've got a number here for the area in square meters. Calculate the total amount of energy expelled. Total amount of energy expelled by the organisms in 1 year. So let's have a look. So we've got this here in square meters. Let's have a look at what the total energy expelled. Oh, it tells you E stands for expelled. Here you've got your 3 E's. Total. Step 1, adding your 3 numbers together to get your total. Okay. And if you want to be sure as to what actually your values are given in what unit it was the kilojoules per square meter per year. So that is per 1 square meter already. So if it's telling you we have 17,000 square meters, we've actually got the right unit already. So step 1 would have been add your 3 numbers for expelled together. If you've got that added together, it should give you 6,606. Times that with your area, you've got this here, which is your 17000. Gives you a fairly large number, 112,302,000. Now that is looking slightly silly. Does it tell you standard form? Okay, it tells you standard form. The normal thing with standard form. If you're no longer settled on the standard form, you might want to review that. Standard form, you're trying to put a comma place after your first significant figure here. So if that was a 0, that would not count if you, let's say, you had a smaller number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1.1 times 10 to the power of 8. And your unit was your kilograms, kilojoules per meter. I'm not going to write that over because it's in the mark scheme anyway. So your maths here, the 6606 was the added together expelled times the area, and then just change it into standard form. If you're no longer settled on standard form, there are lots and lots of good YouTube clips, GCSE level standard form. Just look it up again. Okay. Last one for this question 6 here. And that one kind of partly shocked me because I got an answer where it was suggested that cattle actually emit light energy, and that kind of made me freak out a little bit. There's latest research that part of what happens in your brain is light energy, but actually that's not in any way significant if you're looking at factory farming. The idea is here you're looking at what makes factory farming efficient. if you're actually having, think of chickens stuck all together in cages right next to each other, or herbivores, cattle. You can stick cows literally quite tightly packed next to each other in a heated factory farming situation. Where are your potential energy loss that you're reducing? Because having a cow jump nice and happily across the field, they're eating all sorts of food, which then gets literally changed into the cow having fun and bouncing up and down that field. So muscle activity and the respiration, which in terms of producing food is actually energy lost. So the food lost for movement. If cattle are stuck in a tight environment of factory farming, they can't move. Also, if they're literally factory farmed, you don't want to lose any heat energy. So they're warming each other with body heat, as well as you might add additional heating, which may overall provide to be cheaper to pay for additional heating and insulation around factory farms than actually having to pay for the food that cattle will therefore need to keep their bodies at that constant homeothermic temperature that we've got for mammals. Yeah, so literally, let's look at the mark scheme, because that's literally all there. So factory farming is more efficient because less energy is lost. Why? Because you're controlling how much respiration happens with regards to temperature. You're controlling how much respiration happens with regards to movement, and therefore the muscle contractions. The last point here, the herbivore argument. If you're looking at the energy transfer efficiency for each trophic layer, the energy transfer from primary producers into herbivores is a much higher percentage of energy of biomass that's actually being transferred compared to an animal being eaten by a secondary or tertiary consumer. Part of that is because of the percentage of carbohydrates, percentage of protein available, but also percentage of the primary consumer. It's an animal. It moves, so it wastes energy. Grass doesn't move very much, so that doesn't waste that much energy in respiration while moving. The percentage of energy loss for herbivores is less. There's a lot of arguing going on for veganism and vegetarianism, for eating plant material out of that argument as well, because literally for the same land area, you can produce so much more plant food than you can produce animal food. It's a double argument there if you wanted to go into the detail. So that is question 6.